Hello, curious minds. Okay, this is a special one because today we are diving into one of my oldest midnight questions. You know how some questions pop into your head while you are lying in bed and then you forget to Google them the next day? Well, this happened to me many times with this one. How do snails mate? I remember thinking about it during those late night mind wandering sessions only to completely forget it by morning. It took me months, yes, months, to finally remember when I was awake and near a computer to actually look it up. And let me tell you, what I found is pretty amazing. So, today we are going to explore the surprisingly fascinating and somewhat bizarre love life of snails. First, let's start with something super interesting about snails. Most of them are hermaphrodites. This means that they have both male and female reproductive organs. So, when two snails meet for a romantic encounter, either one of them can play both roles, giving and receiving sperm. But even though they could technically self fertilize, snails prefer to mate with others. Why? Well, genetic diversity, of course. By mating with another snail, they can mix up their genes, which is better for the health of future generations of snails. Think of it as their way of shaking things up. Now, let's talk about the actual mating process because it's way more elaborate than you might think. Snail courtship is a slow and deliberate process. It can last for hours, sometimes up to 12 hours, as they glide around each other, touching and tasting their potential mate with tentacles to assess compatibility. Imagine taking that long just to decide if you want to date someone. Snails are all about being thorough. Once the snails have sized each other up, they get ready for the next step, which is where things get, well, a little spicier. Enter the love dart, a literal dart made of calcium that some snails shoot at their mate during the mating process. Yes, you heard that right. Snails have tiny love darts. Not all snails have them, but for those that do, these darts play a unique role in reproduction. When a snail shoots its dart at its mate, it doesn't exactly pierce them with romantic intention. The dart is covered in a mucus that contains hormones. Once it penetrates the mate's skin, these hormones help increase the chances of successful reproduction by influencing the mate's reproductive system. It's worth noting that these love darts are more about influencing sperm survival rather than fertilization itself. It's like the snail equivalent of giving a little extra boost to their chances in the reproductive lottery. Who knew snails had such a secret weapon? Once the courtship and darts throwing, if they have darts, are over, the snails move on to the actual mating. Since they are hermaphrodites, both snails can transfer sperm to one another. The mating process involves each snail aligning their reproductive openings, which are located near their heads, and extending a tube like organ called the penis into the other snail's opening. Snail sex is a mutual exchange. Both partners pass sperm to each other, which can then be stored in a special sac called spermataca. The cool thing about snails is that they can hold on to this sperm for quite some time, weeks or even months, until they are ready to use it to fertilize their eggs. After mating, the snail doesn't immediately use the sperm. Instead, it stores it until it finds the right conditions to lay eggs. When the snail is ready, it will dig a small hole into the soil or find a safe, moist spot where it can lay its eggs. Depending on the species, a snail can lay anywhere from 30 to 80 eggs at once. The eggs are small and usually covered in a protective jelly like coating. After being laid, it takes about 2 to 4 weeks for the baby snails to hatch. And here's the cool part, baby snails are born with soft, tiny shells. As they grow, they consume calcium from their surroundings to strengthen and expand their shells. While this might seem like a quirky and niche topic, Understanding how snails reproduce is actually really important, especially when we talk about environmental conservation. Some species of snails are at risk of extinction due to habitat loss and pollution. So, knowing about their reproductive habits can help us protect them. In fact, scientists have studied snail reproduction to understand how environmental changes affect their ability to mate and produce viable offspring. For instance, pollution and changes in water quality can directly impact the health of freshwater snails, leading to reduced fertility and developmental issues in their eggs. So, the next time you see a snail leisurely crawling across your garden or sidewalk, remember that their slow and steady pace applies to their love lives too. Snails may not have the flashiest mating rituals, but they have developed a unique and fascinating way to keep their species going. Who knew that something as simple as a snail reproductive process could involve love darts, hermaphrodism, and long, drawn out courtship rituals? Nature always finds a way to surprise us with its creativity, and snails are no exception. And that's it for today's episode of Midnight Question. I hope you enjoyed learning about the slow and sticky love story of snails. If you ever find yourself wondering about something strange in the middle of the night, don't forget to send your questions my way. There's no question too weird for us to explore here. Until next time, sweet dreams, and may your midnight questions keep you curious. I'm Mari, and this is Midnight Questions.